South Africans are waking up to yet another day of load shedding as Eskom works to recover generation capacity. The utility has blamed this on a strike by workers after they downed tools demanding a 12% wage hike, among others. There are now growing calls for a political solution to try solve Eskom's crisis. But what does that actually look like? Let's try and make sense of this for you. Bring in energy expert, Professor Mark Swilling, who joins us via our phone link this morning. Prof, great to always get your take on what's taking place at Megawatt Park. I mean, we've heard people kind of throw this term around, this political solution to the Eskom crisis. We also saw in the weekend papers about how there's deep disagreements between the Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan and Gwede Mantashe, who's the Energy Minister. What does the solution politically look like for you as far as you're concerned?
Well, the presidency issued a statement to the effect that the president is taking the lead in resolving the crisis. And that is very, very significant because that makes it possible to then mount a national priority project or even an energy emergency that would make it possible to break through what Pravin Gordhan called damned red tape in his press interview last week, which is really the fundamental obstacle in the way of accelerating new generation capacity onto the grid.
So you speak about Pravin Gordhan's stance on this. What we've also learned is that what he's calling for is, as you've rightly mentioned, the removal of red tape, which he believes lies in the region of the energy minister's orbit. You know, essentially that Gwede Mantashe needs to do something about that. In response to that, we're told that Gwede Mantashe believes that Eskom does have enough generation capacity and we just need to do better in maintaining that so as to be able to ensure that we don't deal with these rolling blackouts. Is there any clarity from your vantage point about what the solution looks like insofar as that debate is concerned?
Well, the DMRE, the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy, has been saying that for over a decade. And what we have seen, even though there has been successive chief executive offices, in fact, we've had 13 chief executives of Eskom over 13 years, on average one a year. Despite the government having control over the board and the chief executive, the DMRE keeps on saying the same thing over and over again, which is fix the machines, improve the efficiency, use the reserves, and nothing changes. So that can't be the solution. There must be another problem. And the other problem is that these old power stations cannot be rehabilitated. We need to close many of them down very soon. And the only way we can do that is if we have alternatives on the grid. And the only way to build alternatives quickly is with renewables. But unfortunately, the minister doesn't like renewables.
Is that as simple as that? He just simply doesn't like it? I mean, there's also been criticism about how long it might take to get renewables on board in a context where, of course, we need to urgently fix what's taking place insofar as energy procurement is concerned.
The minister knows very well that renewables take on average around 2 years to establish. So it takes 2 years to build a large-scale solar and wind power plant. And what that means is, if we want to end load shedding in 24 months, what we need is 10,000 megawatts or 10 gigawatts of new renewable energy capacity onto the grid within 24 months, plus 5,000 megawatts, 5 gigawatts of battery storage. And if the whole nation got behind the president who is leading the response to the crisis now, we have a chance of achieving that. But if we continue to bicker over who's to blame, who's this, who's that, who can do what, and continuously denigrate and provide false facts about renewables, we simply won't do what the rest of the world is doing, which is rapidly accelerating the cheapest energy source available, which is renewables.
That's interesting, especially because what we've also seen is that countries in the global north, including Germany, some of them have actually gone back to relying on coal, and that's because they're not getting enough gas because of what's taking place in Russia and in Ukraine. Some activists saying that that's a step backwards, quite frankly. What do you read into that, if in fact it is true?
From an energy transition point of view, it is backwards. But under the circumstances, it's not all that surprising. But it's incorrect to say relying on coal. They're removing some old-fired power stations from their mothballs and bringing them back online. There is therefore a massive increase in demand for coal, which is benefiting the South African coal industry. But this is temporary, because we live on a finite planet where we cannot destroy the climate, because if we do, we destroy the future for our children. So inevitably, we will revert back to decarbonizing the global economy, and at the same time, that is also the cheapest source of energy. So prices are going to drive that, as well as a commitment to decarbonization. In South Africa, our primary goal is energy security. And renewables happen to be the best way to achieve that. Decarbonizing is a bonus.
Sure.